For those of you that do not know, this has been a pretty rough week for me. I had my laptop and my wallet stolen from me on Monday. Long story short, I'm back now with a new laptop, things like that. Don't want to make this into like a vlog channel by any means. I want to recap the game. However, the first game that I get to, come back and like officially watch and officially recap, like in depth and everything, was a boring ass New Jersey Devils Pittsburgh Penguins overtime game. I can sum up this game in about a minute. And you know what? That's actually what I'm going to do. The Penguins enter this game decimated with injuries, especially at forward. Evgeny Malkin's going to be out for a while. Teddy Blueger's out, of course. Jason Zucker also. And not to mention, who the fuck am I forgetting? Brandon Tanev. This was a very Pittsburgh Penguins, New Jersey Devils type game. There wasn't a lot of scoring. There wasn't a lot of offensive chances. The Devils were playing better than the Penguins for the most part. And the Penguins' only offense was really coming from their first line. Sidney Crosby got on the board. He got a really nice goal, kind of similar to the one they had the other night, or I guess yesterday, against the Devils. And that would be the only goal that was scored by the Penguins today. Sammy Vatanen scores on Tristan Jarry from a long shot all the way from the point. He was screened by his own defenseman. And in overtime, Jesper Bratt gets a wraparound goal, and the Penguins lose this one 2-1 to the New Jersey Devils. My 3 stars of the day, because it's another matinee game. Jesper Bratt for the OT winner. Crosby because he's carrying this goddamn team and there's nobody else to play with him. And I thought Pavel Zacha was good, sure. The Devils have a lot of players that are feisty and they just work hard, and they're not the best players in the world, but that's exactly what the Penguins are missing. And since I'm finally back with my, typical setup here, let's do a refresher course on the Penguins season, on how it's gone so far, and what the Penguins need. I think we all know what the Penguins need, because let's go over the lines real quick, and I'll get to that in a second. What the Penguins need is good players. The Penguins are hurt. Zucker's out. Malkin's out. Blueger's out. Tanev's out. Okay? You're going to have injuries. This roster, minus Sidney Crosby and I guess the first line, is a borderline AHL roster. Our defense is okay. It's not necessarily, atrocious. It's not hurt. The only defenseman we have hurt is Mark Friedman. At forward, Anthony Angello is playing second power play unit minutes. Evan Rodrigues, who we signed in free agency to league minimum, was our second line center last game. And the Penguins are still resorting on those guys to play in the lineup, and it's simply not good enough. So today, now that we're back, I'm going to go over a refresher course. Which Penguins are playing good? How has the season gone so far? Because we're about halfway. I'm pretty sure, this was game number 30 or something like that? But just for the sake of going over the lines, the first line, that's an NHL line right there. Guentzel, Crosby, Rust. And then it just falls off a cliff. Rodrigues, McCann, Kapanen, Aston Reese, Jankowski, Lafferty, Sceviour, Gaudreau, Angello. Defense is pretty decent. We'll get to Marcus Pettersson and John Marino later. Jarry got the start in net. Again, didn't really think he had a bad game. A bad game by any means. The one Severson goal was, he was screened by his own defenseman. And then the wraparound goal was a wraparound goal. You're allowed to let in goals. Jarry's not the problem here in Pittsburgh. The problem is depth. This team has none of it. This team does not only not have depth, they, in my opinion, don't really have talent. And it's really scary to say that when you have Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin on your team. Obviously, you have those players. And yes, they are aging. They will decline, but they're still top 20 players in the NHL. Sid's top 5. They're great players. I'll say top 10. Gino's had a pretty decent season so far. But there's nobody else that can really help them. Guentzel's there, yes. Brian Rust is not, or was not, supposed to be a top 6 forward. It's great that he is. I love Brian Rust. But when Brian Rust was coming up through the Wilkes-Barre system, and then 2013 or 14 he made his debut, he was not looked at to be the next fucking Phil Kessel. He's not there to score a bunch of goals. But he has. And I'm not discrediting Brian Rust. It just goes to show that the Penguins don't have depth players, because Rust was supposed to be a depth player. So, before we get into what I want to get into for the main chunk of this video, and just pretty much just analyzing the Penguins halfway through the season, I am going to ask probably the strangest PFR question so far, and that is, I'll just come out and ask it, would you play Mike Matheson at forward? Mike Matheson, who I think is having he's been good. He's looked good. His skating is it's stellar. The way he can move the puck is pretty good as well. He's very offensive minded. His skating is just so good. He has played forward in Florida before. Not necessarily something that needs to be done night in and night out, but the Penguins don't have anyone at forward that is contributing, especially in the bottom six. Mike Matheson and, Cody Ceci for that matter, have been generating offense from the blue line. And, as much as we can gripe about how the Penguins defense is bad, they're healthy. You could afford to lose a defenseman and put in Pierre-Olivier Joseph, Juuso Riikola, Chad Riedel. The Penguins have a lot of defensive spares. I know it's a crazy question, but would you play Mike Matheson at forward? Because Frederick Gaudreau, Anthony Angello, and Mark Jankowski aren't cutting it. And one thing I want to clarify is that it's not those players that I have the problem with. It's the Penguins not being able to put better players in their spot. I was not expecting a hat trick from Frederick Gaudreau tonight. I knew the type of player he was. He's like 27. He's an AHL player. He had a stint with the Predators. Anthony Angello, like a 4th-round pick. If they turn into the next Brian Rust, they turn into the next Brian Rust. But my problem with this is that it shows that the Penguins have no depth at forward, and that goes back to the draft. And I've gossiped and bitched about how bad Jim Rutherford drafted in Pittsburgh. If he even did that. He traded away all of our picks. And that's okay. We won Stanley Cups. But it's biting us in the ass right now because we have no third, fourth line players on this team. And you could argue that we have third, fourth line players on this team, but they're playing top 6 roles. Brandon Tanev is not a top 6 forward, but he was in his past couple of games when he was not hurt because the Penguins don't have enough depth. I don't know if the Penguins need depth players or if they need a superstar winger so that Brian Rust, Tanev, McCann can move down and solidify the bottom 6. Because right now it's so fucking lopsided. It's very concerning, and honestly the storyline of the season so far and the storyline for the franchise as we continue to, not have draft picks. It's saddening, but it's not the end. The Penguins can add depth. I'm not going to get into who they could trade for, but I want to bring up 3 names before we get into here. These are the type of players that I think the Penguins need. And as much as I would love to have Patrick Kane on the Penguins, I know it's never going to happen. The Penguins need depth players. I just quick cat-friendly search of players that are making like $2 to $3 million and are on like the 3rd and 4th lines for their team. Examples go Oliver Bjorkstrand for Columbus. He has 11 goals, 27 points. He's making $2.5 million. He's a good player. Is he a superstar? No. Would you put him with Crosby if he was with the Penguins? Probably not. You'd put him on the 3rd line, and he would chip in. Zach Hyman in Toronto, 11 goals, $2.5 million, 20 points. Another player that can help add depth. He's played on the top 6 in Toronto, but that allows them to put William Nylander on like the 2nd or 3rd line. The Penguins don't have that. Andrew Kopp in Winnipeg, making $2.28 million. He's got 20 points, 14 assists. Again, not a superstar player, but a good 3rd line player that the Penguins need. They need players that are good. It's not these players themselves. They're working hard. If I was in Anthony Angelo's shoes right now, I'm not discrediting them. They're just not good enough. Green is expectations managed. These players are doing what they're supposed to do, what they've been brought in to do, and they're going at it. Guentzel, 29 points, 13 goals, leads the team in goals. Crosby, 31 points. I know it's kind of weird when you look at, especially in the fucking North Division, if you look at point totals right now, which I was just doing, there's a lot of weird fluctuating point totals. This isn't a normal season, especially with the North Division, and I don't even give a shit. The North Division is the weakest division. Fucking fight me. McDavid is piling up points because he's playing the Senators every night. He has 60 points. Crosby is leading our team. He only has 31. But it's not an only. I don't know. He's still, a tremendous player. Brian Rust has 11 and 11, and after last year, the expectations were that he would continue to do that, and he did this year. Zucker, I kind of just put in red because he's hurt. Can't really evaluate him. He only played a handful of games. 7 points, 4 goals, 3 assists. Players with the asterisks are currently hurt. Malkin, I put him in blue. And players in blue, I think, are doing good. But I think they could do better. Malkin was heating up. And it really sucks that he's hurt right now. He has 24 points. But he may be out until the later stages of the season. And that's concerning. Kapanen, I debated about putting him in blue because he kind of started off a little bit slow, but ever since he got the connection with Malkin, he's been great. He has 7 goals so far, 21 points. He's been everything as advertised as well. And now we start to get into the main problem that I've gossiped about at the entirety of this video. The Penguins' bottom 6 in depth is just not there. Jared McCann, decent season so far. Would like to see him get on the score sheet more. He has 5 and 5 right now for 10 points. Teddy Blueger, and this is honestly the player that I'm looking at to improve the most. Teddy Blueger is having a bad season. Statistically, he's not bad. He's got 15 points so far. He's hurt right now, which is saying something because Teddy Blueger's a fucking warrior, and he'll go out there. Same with Brandon Tanev. Those players don't get hurt, and then they did. Blueger has been bad defensively. He's not been winning faceoffs. He's been taken off the penalty kill. He doesn't look like the same player from last year. He'll get in, he'll get out of it, hopefully coming back from injury. But it's very concerning that, he's one of your best bottom 6 players, and the Penguins need those bottom 6 players this year with those injuries, and he just really hasn't been there. And again, he's been pretty decent offensively. But defensively, he's, blown a wet fart sometimes. Tanev doing everything as advertised as well. He's even got, pretty decent amount of goals for a player like him. He's got 7 so far, 15 points. Aston Reese, I put in blue. When he came back, he was pretty solid. Had 3 goals in 3 games. He just scored the other night, or yesterday. Good for him. But I would like to see more out of him because simply that's not enough. Zach Aston Reese is great, but compare him. Would you rather have an Oliver Bjorkstrand, a Zach Hyman, or an Andrew Kopp? I would, and that's what winning teams have. Now, I'm not even going to go over the rest of these players because players that I have in purple they're not bad. It's just they're not good enough. They're not. Evan Rodrigues is not a top 6 player in the NHL. He's the new Dominic Simone. It's kind of sad how much ice time he's getting when he's not a good player. And no discredit to him as well. Rodrigues, 5 points. Jankowski, 2 goals. Okay, cool. But both of those 2 goals came in the first 2 games of the regular season. Since then, nothing. He only has 4 points. Sceviour was just thrown in on that Hornquist deal. Not a fan of how he's been brought to Pittsburgh. Again, I'm not discrediting these guys as athletes and as people. Only 3 points. Angello, 1 goal. O'Connor, an assist. Lafferty, 2 assists. Gaudreau and Curry off the board. This is the biggest area of concern of the Penguins, is the forward depth. Free agency, late draft, trade throw-in. Draft? Free agency. All of those players are making, I think, league minimum except for Sceviour. The Penguins need better depth. Let's move over to the defense because that's a little bit different. And I think the Penguins' defense on paper is pretty solid. There's, we can chalk up how bad they leave people in front of the net and things like that. But on paper, I think the Penguins have a good defense. Dumoulin I put in blue because he's been injured. And he didn't, necessarily have some of the best games in the world. He's still Brian Dumoulin, though. Four assists so far for him. Chris Letang is having a good season. And I know Latang is the number one scapegoat in Pittsburgh, but he's got 22 points so far, and he's having a pretty solid season so far, offensively and defensively. Mike Matheson, I've raved about him. My first ever PFR was titled Mike Matheson Sucks because he had a bad game in his first ever game in a Penguins sweater. Since then, he's been really good, and I'm very happy about it because we have him on a very long contract. Matheson, I was surprised that the statistics weren't necessarily there. He's 2-2 right now. He only has 4 points. Cody Ceci has more points than him. Pierre-Olivier Joseph has more points than him. I would like to see more offense from him. Debated about putting him in blue because I thought he had more points. But the way he skates and the way he can control the puck is, it's awesome. And I really like the way he plays. And he's exactly what the Penguins need. He's the new Justin Schultz. And, the one thing that I want out of Matheson isn't really in his control. I want Sullivan to play him more. I want him to be on the top power play unit while Malkin's out. I don't understand. I raved about this last video about how NHL coaches are so fucking paranoid about putting 4 forwards on the first power play unit when they have a perfectly serviceable defenseman that could get some offensive chances. Anyways, Ceci as well, kind of the same thing. Bargain bin contract, proving the haters wrong. 6 points so far. And we're going to skip over Pettersson Marino. We'll just go over these guys real quick. Joseph, I understand why he's not in the lineup, but damn it, I want him back in the lineup, and I'll get to who I would replace him with, or who I would take out to put him in the lineup. Friedman, Ruedel, as expected, decent season so far. And then Churchman, Ricola, Weber. That's okay. You can have defensive spares like that. But you notice how there's only 3 here in terms of like spares that every NHL team has. The Penguins forward group is just spares now. And then before we get to the 2 players that I want to rave about, Jarry and DeSmith, the stats aren't necessarily there, which I was surprised. Jarry's at a .907 save percentage, a 2.90 goals against average. DeSmith a .919 and a 2.11 GAA. That's not the best stats in the world, but I think that's, not really indicative of the way that they've been playing. They've been good. They've been really good, especially DeSmith. He's been, hasn't played as much as Jarry had. They've been good. It's goal save percentage is not the best statistic to track goalies. I probably should have put up a different stat there. But let's talk about Marcus Pettersson and John Marino. Excuse my French here, but they are fucking terrible this year. Marino especially. And I know everyone loves John Marino. And I love John Marino. And I really liked how he got that contract extension. John Marino and Marcus Pettersson, but we expect more out of Marino. They've looked like dog shit this year. They've been the Penguins' worst defenseman and the worst defensive pairing. I think Marino's like a -6 or a -8, which I know, plus minus is a weird stat. But the way that they play in their own end is atrocious, especially Marino, who is screening DeSmith or Jarry, and I think he has like 4 goals. 4 goals have been off of him, hit him, and gone in, and that happens when you're in front of the net. But it's both unlucky and also concerning. Pettersson is very bad at defensive zone coverage recently, and it's okay if you have a young defenseman that you want to get more reps in. Marino's definitely that. He's hopefully going to be the anchor for the Penguins defense after Latang leaves, but he's costing the team, and so is Pettersson. It's okay if you have a player of a rookie or whatever, a young player in the lineup to get him more reps as long as he's not costing the team. Marino is costing the Penguins, and I think he should be out of the lineup. I think John Marino should sit for a couple games. I thought that's what they did a couple weeks ago, but it turns out he was hurt. John Marino is not looking good. Pettersson's all right, but what do they bring? What do they bring to this team? They're just minute eaters right now. That's all they are. And if you need minute eaters, throw in Chad Ruedel or fucking, Kevin Churchman. If that's what you need, you should not be paying $9 million combined between those 2 guys, almost that much money to just eat minutes. They're not offensively generating anything. Pettersson and Marino combined have 7 points. Marino didn't get his first goal until like a week ago. They're not good enough. And having them both on the same pairing is concerning. And I think one of them should sit. I think it should be Marino, though, because he needs to learn his lesson as a young player. And Pettersson's, not old by any means. He's like a year older than him. But he's just been in the league for 3 years already now. But man, I've been ranting a lot about the current state of the Penguins. I think Joseph should come back in the lineup for Marino. Again, PFR today was essentially it was a New Jersey Devils Pittsburgh Penguins game. They lost in overtime to Jesper Bratt. That was your game recap. I want to have more fun with these, be a little bit more loose. I'll get back to editing more and doing more fun things in it. But as for the game itself, my 3 stars of the day, Bratt, Zucker, and Crosby. And my PFR question is crazy. Do you want Mike Matheson to play forward? Thank you all for watching. I'm very happy to be back. And yeah, I really do appreciate it. All you guys have been very supportive over these, past couple of days. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys in the next PFR. And hopefully I'll get that Marvel video out. I'll have to restart it, but we'll see you guys then.